Hello, everyone. Welcome to another edition of No Credentials Required. This is the show where you don't need a press pass to talk sports. We are presented by Belly Up Sports in association with Gozilla Media. I'm going to introduce you to our panel on my right. There we go. Still figuring this out. On my right is my co-host and soon to be the next soon to be Mr. Giselle Bunenshin, Dustin Henry. Dustin, how we doing today?
Oh, thank you, sir. Did we get waked the fuck up or what? Oops, sorry. Did we get waked up or what? Holy shit. To quote Pete Carroll talking about the Seahawks offense, I am ready to go. Evening, gentlemen. I stepped all over that one.
And underneath us is the co-host of White Heat on Gozilla Media, as well as the host of Katie's Corner, and a gritty enthusiast, Mr. Brian Katie. Brian, how are we doing tonight?
Dustin, it's okay because in one podcast I swear a lot, in the other one I don't swear at all. It's okay.
Yeah, we'll get a happy median.
You know, I'll make sure that I put a PG sensor on my tongue today too. So it's okay.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
Sorry,
I got so excited about Coach Carroll's quote there. I was channeling it. I was fired up.
It's not a bad thing to be fired up. I whenever I have my buddy Kevin on, who's the one of the co-hosts of Tailgate on the Quad, it's on Belly Up Sports. I said, all right, you're allowed one F-bomb per episode. One F-bomb. And
all right. Well, I got mine out of the way. I got mine right out.
So we're going to continue with our episode tonight in just a moment. Just want to remind you about our social media channels right down below for our show on Twitter, Instagram, and yes, even TikTok. I may do a gritty. No Creds REQ. Facebook.com/No Creds REQ. If you're watching on Facebook right now, give us a thumbs up. And also on YouTube, give us a thumbs up. Give us a like, subscribe, hit the notification bell. That way you know when either new episodes are up or we go live. And if you're listening on the audio side, subscribe to the podcast. Oh, I forgot to do one more thing. So if you're watching the show, engage with us. There's that beautiful, beautiful sound. We want your algorithmic engagement comments, your AECs as I call them. We want you to interact with us. If it's sufficiently cruel, unusual, or it makes us laugh, we'll definitely read it. But I'll remind you again, we want your engagement. Engage with us, because that means the algorithm works and all that fun stuff with both YouTube and Facebook.
We're down with AECs. Yeah, you know me.
Yeah, you know me.
Yeah. That music made me feel like we were unveiling like the showcase on Price is Right for a second.
Yeah.
It's a brand new car.
Dun, dun, dun. If you're listening on our audio side, our home base here at No Credentials Required is Spreaker, but you can also listen on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, whichever platform you subscribe to podcasts to. Rate and review. 5 stars is always a good rating for us. Leave a review. If you leave a review either on a podcast side, or if you leave a review after our recording on YouTube, leave us a comment. We might even read it on the air. And again, if it's sufficiently cruel, unusual, or just makes us laugh, we will read it within reason.
Yeah. I feel like we always have to put that caveat nowadays.
We do,
because you never know. Keyboard warriors, they be strong out there.
Yeah, sometimes a little bit too strong. I don't want to get in the comments. Wow, power! No, we're not reading that.
No. Oh man, we're already up to 2 hands to the face count on this. We're crushing it.
You drink something before getting on the air, right?
I had Little Debbie ice cream. Okay, that's why I'm feeling so good. I had Little Debbie ice cream.
Which one?
Oh, I had a scoop of the oatmeal cream pie and the scoop of the Nutty Buddy. And I gotta say, the oatmeal cream pie is better than the Nutty Buddy.
Oh, hands down. The oatmeal cream pie is it's a dream. It's beautiful. It's wonderful.
Yeah, the guy at Hannaford. Shout out to the good folks at Hannaford. I know you're watching right now.
Oh yeah.
But if you find yourself a nice pint at your local, I don't know if they have it at Market 32 or wherever. I mean, wherever you go to get your sundry items for consumption. Find it there. It's good stuff.
Seek it out.
Seek it out. All right. Hopefully, and Little Debbie ice cream. If we want your sponsorship.
Hey, we're looking for sponsors always. Come on.
Yeah, that's right.
Fire
Yeah,
up.
we got some sponsors coming down the road. We got Nick's Meats coming down the road. We got the menstrual
Careful.
all female group called the Menstrual Cycles. They're going to be a sponsor with us
Oh,
soon.
nice. Excellent.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun time. It's going to be a fun time on No Credentials Required. So let's talk about the NFL this week. We're going to start with NFL, our Week 4 reactions. Brian, I don't know if Brian has a favorite NFL team, you do. Okay, I remember correctly.
I'm a Giants fan, and by
That's
marriage,
right.
I'm also a Bills fan, I guess, too. So
That's
All
right.
right,
I forgot
all
you're a
right.
Giants fan. Yeah. So what's your reaction to the Giants being the Bears on Sunday afternoon, Brian? What's your take from it as a Giants fan? I'm pretty sure you speak for most, if not all, Giants fans who are watching currently to this program.
look, if there was a team that the Giants could have handpicked to face after losing the Cowboys on Monday Night Football, I think the Bears would have been on that very short list of Bears, Texans, and depending on how you look at the Raiders, maybe the Raiders too. But, I mean, it was exactly the kind of game you'd expect out of Bears and Giants, isn't it? I mean,
Yeah.
you didn't expect either team to lay up the scoreboard. We all know Justin Fields was never going to reach 200 yards passing. I'm shocked he even got to, 155 he finished with? That stunned me. Let me put it this way. Let me put it into this grand context. Cooper Kupp has more receptions through 4 weeks of NFL than Justin Fields has completions.
Oh,
Okay,
that's
a stat right there.
That's haunting.
So, yeah, Cooper Kupp has like 42 after last night, and I think Fields now like 35, 36 completions.
Ooh.
So, if you were that one guy who said, Darnell Mooney's a sleeper for fantasy football.
Yeah, there was a lot of people saying that. I saw some guy named his team To the Mooney. I said, I don't think that's going to work out very well. I will say,
I just died a little inside.
This was my pick for the game I least wanted to watch this week, but
it was the one you would rather drink castor oil than watch.
Yes. But I will say, Saquon, he continues to look like a man reborn. Maybe he's finally fully healthy. I think he said something like, "This is the guy that I knew was always there." And how about the craziness where Jones went out, I believe, with some kind of ankle sprain, and then Tyrod came in, and then he ended up getting evaluated for a concussion. So they're running the Wildcat out there, out of necessity for a few plays. That was wild to watch.
Listen, the viewership of the Giants-Bears game was every Giants and Bears fan that's so diehard they refuse to miss any game on television. And then if they were a Saquon Barkley fantasy owner, those are the only people that watched that game. I was on Red Zone, so I guess I kind of count.
I was on Red Zone too. Scott Hansen.
I was on Red Zone as well. I have Saquon Barkley in the Godzilla Media League. The Mustache Rides are 4-0.
I'm right behind you, pal.
Oh,
right behind you.
Here we go. Well, of course, I know that last year's league, Chet Davis was undefeated, and I beat him.
0-4 now?
He's 0-4 now, which is hysterical.
Oh man, there's how the tides have turned in that league. I'll tell you that.
Chet Davis, big fan. I know he's watching right now. But Chet, last year Chet was undefeated up until I think he faced me, and I had my roster had Henry Ruggs still active in the lineup.
Wow.
Right.
And Marlon Mack, and I wound up beating him because all of his starters tanked that week, and I wound up beat him by like 10 points.
Wow.
It was, and the next week is just, I think on What the Fantasy, which is another one of our Gozilla Media podcasts with Chet and Goz. Chet's feed had frozen. And it was just this really disappointed face almost the entire episode. I call it resting Chet face. It was one of the best moments of streaming television I've ever seen. So we're going to go to our usual categories here in week 4. When we wrap up the week in the NFL, I know corrections are required. We're going to talk about first our biggest upset. Dustin, I'm going to let you start. Who is the biggest upset in your mind in week 4 in the NFL?
For me, the biggest upset, and it's mostly just because I do not understand how they have 2 wins on the season. I'm saying the Atlanta Falcons were my biggest upset of week 4. They beat the Browns, which I understand the Browns are the Browns, but the Browns have a serviceable Jacoby. Why do I always space
Jacoby Brissett.
Jacoby Brissett at QB. Is he like a star? No, but he can get you. He can get you some W's. They have Nick Chubb. They have Kareem Hunt. They have an offense that if they can run the ball, they're going to be all right. But the Falcons are coming out. I think Marcus Mariota has 3 touchdowns on the season total passing, and they're still winning games. And they're getting and the Browns beat them in time of possession. I forget the actual numbers, but I know the Browns had the ball a lot more than the Falcons did, but yet they find themselves 2-2 after beating my Seattle Seahawks in week 3. So it's crazy.
Yeah. This was a fun game to watch if you're watching on Red Zone, which I usually do on Sunday mornings or Sunday afternoons. But But yeah, that was an entertaining game for sure. My biggest upset, and if you want to call it that, I had the Titans over the Colts, and the Colts were actually favored by I think 3.5 in this game. But the Titans came to play. The Titans had a pretty solid offensive game plan. They almost blew a lead, but their defense went saving the day. They stopped Jonathan Taylor on a crucial 3rd and 1, and actually Taylor got the first down, but he fumbled the ball. And Titans took over, and after that, it was fait accompli. So, I mean, there weren't really many upsets in terms of gigantic, monumental upsets in Week 4, but you consider the Jets Steelers to be kind of an upset. If we'll get into that a little bit more later, but in my mind, the Titans kind of had their season on the line in a way, because their offense outside of Derrick Henry right, Derrick Henry left, Derrick Henry up the middle is anemic at best, because Ryan Tannehill's their quarterback. But they came to play. I give them full credit. Mike Vrabel had a game plan. Frank Reich I have to think he's on the hot seat. We're gonna have to do some hot seat rankings over the course of the next month or so, or my hot seat scale, as I call it. And I think Frank Reich he could possibly be a coach who's on his way out at the end of the season if the Colts don't pick things up.
Yeah, he could be in some trouble, because I think we were not the only ones that had semi-lofty expectations for the Colts this season.
No. Well, I had them winning the AFC South, but I didn't have them going very far in the playoffs.
Yeah. But I believe, if memory serves, I also had them finishing atop the NFC South, but they are in some trouble, especially as we've talked about previously on the show. The Jags are, in my opinion, even after this week's game, the Jaguars are still the real deal this year. So that division is more of a 3-team race, and the Colts they're in some trouble.
Yeah. How about you, Brian? What, in your mind, which game was the biggest upset for you?
Honestly, the only 2 games I felt weren't formful to what I expected are the 2 games you guys already mentioned. But I do want to point out 2 other games aside from the Falcons and the Titans victories. Number 1, if you had sat me down before the season and told me that an offense led by Geno Smith would score 48 points at any game this season, we're going to a bold-faced liar.
We're going to talk about that game.
And Geno Smith went out there. He looked like Michael Vick 2.0 the way he was playing offense. And and then Rashad Penny, all of a sudden, he looks like Sean Alexander from the year 2000. Like, I can't even explain that. And then the second thing, I know he just signed a big contract, but should Dak Prescott be having eyes in the back of his head by this point? Yes. Cooper Rush is 4-0 as a Cowboys starter. They have done nothing but look consistent on the offense. Cooper Rush protects the ball. They run the kind of offense I believe Mike McCarthy prefers, aside rather than having Dak trying to deke and dunk his way down the field, they're doing a lot more game management, opening
No
up space
relation,
for
by the way.
correct, opening up space against with Zeke and for Pollard. And on the other side of it, if you're a Commanders fan, where's Antonio Gibson?
Yeah.
And this whole offense in general is, aside from game one where Curtis Samuel looked like a whole new guy, this Commanders offense is just pathetic at best, and that's being nice.
Yeah, and honestly, to me, their best offensive weapon is supposedly still Terry McLaurin, but they're not using him at all. They're not, Ron Rivera keeps coming out and saying we know we have to get him the ball more. We know we have to, but I don't know if it's just he and Wentz are not establishing a rapport. I don't know what's going on, but I thought that offense was going to be better than it has been so far. You are right in saying that it is pathetic so far.
And speaking of people they need to watch about their jobs, Antonio Gibson, you're another one, because Brian Robinson is coming off the IR for this week's game. And from everything that was being reported at camp before that unfortunate shooting he was a part of, Gibson, look out. And not only that, J.D. McKissick, that's a three. It kind of goes with the feeling of when you have two quarterbacks, you really have none. I kind of feel like the same way about the Commanders' back right now. If you have three running backs you're trying to use, you really have none until you make a damn decision. And that's what Ron Rivera is going to have to do at some point. He's going to have to pull the trigger on someone. That was probably a bad reference to make with Brian Robinson. But anyways,
hey,
you got to pick one at some point and just stick with it. And I think that's going to be Gibson the odd man out in this case right now.
Yeah. So from the comments section, we got Kevin Wilson, who's one of our Belly Up sports fantasy writers. Excellent job with his fantasy analysis for both football and baseball. He says, my Seahawks scored 48. There won't be a bigger upset this season. Arguably, yeah. But I mean, I know Kevin's a big Seahawks fan, as is Dustin.
Yeah.
But no, that was, if again, like Brian said, you won't, if you any kind of game where Geno Smith has a heck of a game.
He completed 77% of his passes, I believe. So I mean, we're going to talk about that game.
Yeah. Well, against that Lions defense, anybody could probably complete 77% of their passes. All right, so we're moving
yards.
Yes. He had the amount of times he had thrown for over 300 yards in the NFL. I don't know that he ever had, or there was very few before that game, but I mean, he looked good.
He did. All right. Biggest disappointment. I'm going to start. Tampa Bay Buccaneers were the biggest disappointment this week. And there was numerous reasons. They have no run game. They ran 6 times the entire game on Sunday night. 6 times. Tom Brady they had Tom Brady go into passing 52 passing attempts. He was sacked once, which is miraculous considering that offensive line is just beat up and down. They have really no offensive line right now. It's guys who could probably start in the USFL or the XFL next season. And secondly, that defense who was lights out against the same Kansas City Chiefs offense 2 years ago was absolutely, they could not stop a nosebleed in this game. And they were my biggest disappointment, especially at Todd Bowles' defense. Look, from all the crap he had to deal with in New York, now he's a head coach in Tampa Bay. He's a little bit more conservative when it comes to his offense, like he was in New York. But if this NFC South is just going to be weird, and I won't be surprised if a team like Atlanta shows up at the end of the year at 8-9 and they wind up winning the division by default.
It could happen, and part of the reason I said biggest upset, I thought the Atlanta Falcons would be competing with the Seahawks for worst team in the NFL honors this year, who would get that first overall draft pick. And the season is still early, but somehow bafflingly, Atlanta always seems to be at least in games at the end, and I don't understand how it's happening. But here we are. And I do say, I think the Bucks, part of it is, I think their team has seemed to me, and I'm not the biggest I'm not the most educated on the Bucks, but it seems to me that it's gotten old very quickly. That they've some of their talent just isn't performing to the standards that they normally would. Like Leonard Fournette, a year ago, he looks like rejuvenated, and now partially because of the offensive line you mentioned, he can't find anywhere to run.
No.
He's gotten more action in the passing game than in the run game, just because they can't get anything going. And I do wonder how much of it is Todd Bowles' offensive approach, because in the back of my mind, I wonder what Bruce Arians and Byron Leftwich would do with this same offense.
I was going to say, it's not just Todd Bowles' approach, it's also Byron Leftwich's system.
Yeah.
I mean, you saw a couple weeks ago that when Tom Brady was throwing tablets and cussing out his receivers and cussing out Leftwich from a distance, something's going on with this offense. We don't, and I mean, it takes a good month for Tom Brady to get going.
Yeah,
we might see him get it going. We might see this might be the end of Tom Brady for all we know. This might be his last season. And fun fact about me and Tom Brady, we were born the same month in the same year. We share the same astrological sign. Those are the only three things we have in common. Other than the same future wife. But
all right. Hey, you're bequeathing her to me earlier in the podcast. What's going on here?
Well, I think we're gonna have a fight. We're gonna have a fight.
All right.
So Dustin, for you, what was your biggest disappointment this week?
My biggest disappointment this week, I would say it's gotta be, and I know they won, but the Packers, something is up in Cheesehead land. Let me tell you, because. And I know they have young receivers, and I know a lot's been made of Aaron Rodgers giving them a bunch of eye rolls and stuff. They're not where they're not probably where he would like them to be at this point in the season, but there's going to be some growing pains. But the fact that the Packers came out and they let I think the consensus would be undermanned Patriots team with a third string quarterback, old Bailey Zappi out there. Taking it to OT, I was shocked. And I thought I would never do this, but part of me started rooting for the Patriots to somehow miraculously pull out that game just so I could see the look on Aaron Rodgers' face. But the Packers running backs are going to be what saves them this season. It's not going to be this arid out attack that it has been. When Randall Cobb is the best looking receiver on your offense so far, you probably have to rely on the run game a little bit more. But I was shocked by that the Patriots came to play on the level that they did. And you know Belichick's going to scheme. He always comes up with a great game plan, but this Patriots offense actually looked somewhat presentable, and I think their offensive woes have been well documented to start the season. So that was my biggest disappointment of the Green Bay Packers.
Yep. Brian, how about you? Biggest disappointment this week?
First off, who had the better tablet toss? Tom Brady on a sideline or Ken Dorsey when he got mad at the end of the Miami game the week before this past week?
Ken Dorsey, no question. And also the camera cover, that ices it for me. That when they're all of a sudden like, oh, we can't show this. That was the best.
For me, it's I'm stuck between two, but I'm gonna give one of the two teams a break. I'm gonna give the Rams a break because, as much as I hate the fact that Matthew Stafford threw 2/3 of his targets to Kupp and Higbee and act like Allen Robinson didn't exist.
Yeah. Where's Allen Robinson?
I'll give him a little bit of a break because it was a 14-9 game going into the fourth quarter. And really, if you take out that pick six from Stafford when he was staring down Cooper Kupp for when everybody knew he was going to Cooper Kupp, you might have gotten a different outcome last night. So I'll give them the pass on that. Here's what I won't give a pass on. My biggest disappointment isn't even a team. It's not even a player. It's a head coach. Everybody's about analytics this, analytics that.
Ugh.
But John Harbaugh pulled a Pete Carroll the other day.
Oh, no.
Your first and goal at the Buffalo 10 in a tied game with 6.5 minutes to play. Your first play, a pass to Duvernay bringing you to the 1, fine. No problem with that.
Mhm.
Second and goal, J.K. Dobbins, 3-yard loss. Third and goal, Lamar up the middle for 2. You have fourth and goal at the 2. It's a tie game. You have 4 minutes left. And yes, Buffalo has scored 10 points in the third quarter. They haven't done anything since. And your defense, while not great, is still decently formidable, and you're still in some inclement weather. There's a fairly good chance you can stop Buffalo, so either they have to go for like a very long field goal that could easily miss, or you stop them altogether and get a turnover on downs. What do? No, screw the go-ahead field goal. We're going for it. And not only are you going for it, you're throwing for it.
Mhm.
And you throw a pick.
Yes.
What are you doing? This is the Super Bowl where Pete Carroll hand-wrapped a gift to Bill Belichick, and Malcolm Brown was looking like Richard Sherman on that play. No.
Malcolm Butler. Yeah.
Yeah, Malcolm Butler. Thank you. No. And what has Malcolm Butler done, by the way, since the Super Bowl? A whole lot of nothing, but that's whatever.
Yeah.
He's bounced around.
But, you want to talk about just wrapping Josh Allen a 3-1 start to the season that the Bills didn't deserve. I mean, holy cow. I saw them run that play, and it was weird. Like, half of me, the half of me that loves my wife was like, yeah, go Bills. The other half of me is just a football fan in general was like, what are you doing? What are you doing? But yeah, I mean, that's just all these guys are relying too heavily on analytics about when to go for it on fourth down, when to punt, or when to kick the field goal. You stop the numbers. You got to go with the game flow. And the game flow at that point says take the points and trust in your defense in inclement weather for 4 minutes. But instead, you do that and you end up losing the game.
Yeah, and that was unquestionably the momentum shift in that game, because I was watching that, and I wrote that down in my notes. Why would you throw that on fourth and goal from the 2 with 4:09 left? I didn't understand it.
Yep. All right, moving on to the most entertaining game this week, Brian. I want to start with you. In your mind, which was the most entertaining game this week?
Bears and Giants. No, I'm kidding. I have 2 games that have immediately come to mind that I think would not have been anybody's option going into the week. There was a sick part of me that was actually entertained by Jets and Steelers. Am I the only one that kind of thought that at all? Like, I was mildly entertained by the fact of Zach Wilson getting his first shot this season. I was entertained with Kenny Pickett, going out there and doing what he was doing and basically auditioning for the job that we all know he ultimately got for this coming week.
They was supposed to get probably in week 8, but Mike Tomlin was like, nope.
And honestly, 2 of Kenny Pickett's 3 picks, one was a deflection off receiver's hands, the other was a Hail Mary at the end of the game. So you can really say he just threw 1 pick when you look at that. Mm-hmm. So to me, Jets Pats was one, and then I would have never guessed Vikings Saints in London.
That was mine. That was mine.
I would have never guessed that in a million years, especially once they rolled out Jameis, Thomas, and Kamara, and the Saints still had a shot at the end of the game. I was stunned. I was stunned how entertaining that game was.
Yeah, Ryan, go ahead.
The fact that there was a double doink to end the game was just. If you were a Bears fan, you died inside a little bit for Will Lutz, but the fact that it was field goal treating at the Saints came back to tie it. Vikings go up with less than a minute left. Saints drive the field, and Will Lutz, who had just kicked his career long a couple minutes before, had a chance to win the game at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium in London.
That extra yard further away mattered, because if he was a yard closer, either it hits the upright and deflects in because it would have been on the inside of the upright, or he might not even have hit the upright at all. That would have just snuck inside. That extra 3 feet.
I mean that stadium's probably seen their share of crossbar and post shots off the goal. Well, granted, it's a different sport, but it was. I mean, I didn't watch the full game, but I mean, but I've watched the highlights, and that was probably my most entertaining game of the week.
Yeah, I mean, I will confess something. This is a football sin here, but I was watching the beginning of the game and I'm like, oh, they're trading field goals. I'm gonna go make coffee and I'll keep it on, but I won't really pay attention. Then next thing you know, I get a phone call. I'm talking on the phone. I'm not watching the game at all. I come back to the game and I'm like, oh man, the hell happened? And I sit in and I'm like, I'm gonna watch. This is great. It ended up being a fantastic game. Let's not forget the return of the red rifle, old Andy Dalton out there.
That's exactly what I was going to say. I was going to say, don't ever turn your back on Andy Dalton.
All right. Moving on to our next category, the most impressive performance, and I'm going to take this. I'm going to take this one for a ride. Saquon Barkley, the most, and here's tag along. Hello, say hello to tag along. Joining us as always every single week, getting my attention, trying to get my attention. The mascot of the show, exactly.
Yeah.
For me, it was Saquon Barkley. We talked about him a little bit, but he to me, he was my most impressive performance. Honorable mention, and I'm going to be a bit of a homer here. My New York Jets, their defense in particular, Quinnen Williams looking every bit of the dominant defensive lineman Jets fans have been waiting for since he joined the team in 2017. He had an awesome game. That secondary had a really great game. 4 picks. They have 6 picks so far in the season. I think they had only 7 last year, period. And granted, this is not the same Steelers from 2 or 3 seasons ago, or 5 seasons ago, or 6 or 7 seasons ago, when they had Ben Roethlisberger, Antonio Brown, Juju Smith-Schuster. All those guys are gone. Granted, it's not the same offense. Granted, but they had Najee Harris on their team, but he didn't do a whole lot against the Jets. But I gotta give it up to this defense of the New York Jets. They're playing legit right now, and we give a lot of crap to Brian Ulrich, the defensive coordinator, and Robert Saleh, the head coach, who was a defensive guy with the 49ers, defensive coordinator.
Mm-hmm.
But they came out with a solid game plan. They got turnovers at the right time, which turned into a touchdown, to the game-winning touchdown. But this team, it's just this defense played out of their mind last week, and I gotta tip my hat, my hypothetical hat to the Jets defense here.
All right. Yeah. I mean, you gotta give it up anytime a defense comes together. It is exciting to watch. Everybody always says, oh, offense, but defensive football can be a thing of beauty. But I must admit, in my most entertaining game, and also my best performance of the week is also in that game. And no, it is not Geno Smith. I'm hard on myself because it seems like I'm picking a quarterback for this category every week, but I am picking TJ Hawkinson this week. He was on fire. Given the fact that the Lions were undermanned, they didn't have Amon-Ra St. Brown, they didn't have DeAndre Swift, 2 of their biggest offensive weapons. TJ Hawkinson was a man to be reckoned with. He had 8 receptions, 179 yards, I believe, and 2 TDs. Let's set it aside for a second. The defenses, nobody showed up in this game. No, Tariq Woolen got the defensive pick 6 for the Seahawks, but that was where it stopped. Neither team could stop anybody. Quandre Diggs, before the game, he said the Seahawks defense had to bow up or shut up. They got shut up in this game. But luckily for them, this game was Rashad Penny, 151 yards rushing. Geno Smith, we already went into great detail about what he did during the game. Honorable mention to DK Metcalf getting carted off just because he had to go to the bathroom. Look up the tweet that he said. He said he tweeted something like that clinch walk wasn't going to make it. Go find it if you can. It's
hysterical.
It's very hilarious. But this game, the Seahawks went puntless in the game for the first time in franchise history. This was my most entertaining game. I do feel I do feel bad for the Detroit Lions. I have been rooting for them in every game that they're in. They are averaging, I believe they are leading the league in scoring. This one I'm pulling from the top of my dome, so I might be wrong, but I believe they are averaging 35 points a game. But unfortunately, they're averaging 35 points against. So that is why the Lions are 1-3. But that was my most entertaining game. TJ Hawkinson, best performance of the week for me.
Brian, Katie, how about you? What was your most impressive performance? Who was the player that stood out in your mind as the most impressive performance?
I got two winners here. I have a player and I have a coach.
Mm-hmm.
Most impressive performance on the field, and granted, this is the performance you should expect out of this player going against the opponent he faced. But Austin Eckler getting 19 touches, 109 yards, and 3 touchdowns, that definitely ranks up there for me. Nice to see him show up because those were his first touchdowns of the season. I'm sure fantasy owners love that.
Well, he owns himself on a bunch of fantasy teams, so he's happy about it.
Yeah. Of course, you got to go all over yourself.
Sometimes you got to bet on yourself, and
yeah, exactly.
That's just showing it right there.
Exactly. And Eckler, he showed up, he balled out, and good on him. And now the Chargers can see if they can take advantage of the way this AFC West is turning out, because it's a tight one right now. Because I mean, the Chiefs aren't quite the same Chiefs, but what they did on Sunday night was impressive nonetheless. Denver, they're like Jekyll and Hyde. You don't know what you're going to get from them. And the Raiders, I don't even want to talk about the Raiders at this point. But I got to give an impressive performance award out to a coach. And it goes back to my biggest disappointment. It goes back to that same game. For Leslie Frazier's team, they give up 20 points in the first half to the Baltimore Ravens, with J.K. Dobbins making them look a bit stupid out there, going into halftime, figuring out a game plan that was going to work, and shutting out the Ravens in the second half to give Josh Allen a chance to win that ball game and give Sean McDermott a chance to win that ball game. I mean, I don't know what adjustments they made, but whatever Leslie Frazier said, it worked, and they went out there. And this was with a couple of their best corners still missing time the other day. So good on Leslie Frazier and getting the defense of the Bills to turn things around that second half and pitch a shutout and give their team a chance to win at the buzzer.
Now we got a couple more comments from our feedback zone here. Brian Snowman in the morning with Cole Johnson. How about them 49ers? 49ers did well. Give a ton of credit to them. And our resident, another comment from our buddy Kevin Wilson. Most impressive fact: the Seahawk punter never left the sideline. Yep. Absolutely.
Yep. We had to put Michael Dixon on a milk carton for that one.
No, I think my thing is, how about Mini Polamalu? Not just how about those 49ers. How about Mini Polamalu there? Was it Holafanga? I think it is his last name, with the pick six that wrapped it up for the Niners last night.
I believe so.
Because I've been watching him, like, when you, like, I know we were watching Red Zone. We were all watching Red Zone this weekend, but when I watch Red Zone, and I know like a certain units out there that I want to kind of look ahead to. Hafanga, thank you. I want to see, like, are there certain guys producing that should be producing, or the guys that are kind of popping out? And this young man, Hafanga, from week one, has shown up and balled out every single week, even in games where Fred Warner may have been a no-show, where maybe the pass rush wasn't up to snuff. This kid, and he's been working with Polamalu, and it shows. If he can keep working under Polamalu and keep absorbing everything that he's telling him, he could be the next great safety of the NFL for the next 10 to 15 years, the way he's playing right now.
Yeah, and Brian Snow, our 49ers fan, Hafanga is the last name.
Yeah.
He had a 50-yard pick six. Another comment here. Am I my friend Dave? Am I caller 9? No, you're caller 8. Sorry, Dave.
We already talked about the Packers, Dave.
Sorry, Dave. All right, so we're going to go into a topic. I don't know how far we're going to go into it, but hottest individual take from week 4. I got to talk about this situation with Tua Tagovailoa. There's a lot of irresponsibility with multiple parties here. There's irresponsibility on Tua's part for wanting to play. there's a responsibility on the Dolphins' part for hiring this quote consultant of a neurologist.
This jackwagon.
This jackwagon of a neurologist who should be stripped of every medical license in the state of Florida. And anyway, it's also a fault on the part of Mike McDonald for not pulling, for making, and it's a rookie head coach too. I get it, but you can't go by word and just say, okay, he passed all the tests, he passed all the protocols, he says he's good to play, but you're 4 days removed from ankle and back injuries. But clearly he had a concussion on Sunday, and you go into a game, and this is the part I hate about Thursday night games. And for me, if you're the NFL and you say we're concerned about player safety, we want the safety of our players to be paramount, we want that to be evident, why don't you do this? Why don't you either pare down the amount of Thursday night games you have, or just scrap the idea altogether? Because this playing on 4 days rest, this is how players are going to get hurt. And I hope to God that we see that. I mean, I get it. Money talks. Amazon wanted their way, and they're willing to pay boatloads of money to the league because it gets your eyes in the league. Not that they have enough already with ESPN and NFL Network and Fox and NBC and CBS and ESPN, all those stations covering it. But this shines, having this happen to Tua and seeing basically his soul leaving his body for about 8 minutes. And St. Peter saying, no, your time's not done yet. I'm going to send you back down. It's scary. It's a scary situation, and you hate to see that for any type of player. I'm a New York Jets fan. I'm not a fan of the New York Dolphins. They're one of our chief rivals, but I hate seeing that done to any player. Any player. I would have not wanted it on my worst enemy to see them in that type of condition on the field, where his fingers are literally look something like the Emperor from Star Wars. Yeah, and thankfully, he's going to be out for a couple of weeks. Again, not saying it from a New York Jets fan standpoint, but just for the fact that this is your career. This is not your career; it's your life.
Yes,
it's your life. And we saw how we can talk about the controversy about CTE and concussions and mental health, and I'm starting to believe it's real. I mean, based on the documentary we had about Junior Seau a couple of years ago.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
how his life tragically ended. I'm starting to believe it.
I completely agree, especially with all the research that former WWE wrestler Chris Nowinski has done on it. It is a thing, and that's, you hit on my biggest point the last time. Teddy Bridgewater is a serviceable enough backup in the NFL. He started games. He has game experience. If you truly cared about Tua's well-being the way that you tried to claim after that you did, start Teddy for that game.
Yeah,
he could win you the game. Yeah, he could win you the game.
4.
And the thing is, like, even if I don't put as much of the blame on Tua Tagovailoa, he of course, he's a competitor. He's going to want to go, but in the back of, he does deserve some of the blame because he had to know that he was not 100%. But yeah, whoever cleared him, revoke their medical license, do everything, because he clearly wasn't ready to go. As you alluded to, he's down on the field for nearly 10 minutes after a sack. And everybody came out because they were rightfully worried. And as you said, it's not only his life, but think about Tua was injured, and it took him a couple of years to come back from what was it, a hip injury?
It was a hip injury, yeah.
Yeah. Took him a couple of years to come back. So he's finally, part of it is he might feel, I can't miss time because I've already got the rep of injured or whatever.
Yeah, it's next man up in the NFL. If you lose your job, you may never get it back.
Yeah,
I get it.
So part of it is that mentality. But the thing is, you gotta, as a coach, I don't care if it's your first year, you've been an offensive coordinator, you got to look out for your players, especially a young player such as this. His career could be over. Now, from the looks of it, it doesn't look like it. Hopefully he recovers. Hopefully he passes all the protocols within a reasonable timeline this time. But this jeopardized a ton for this young man just to try to get a win against a Bengals team on Thursday Night Football, week 4.
Yeah. And you know what? I got to say this, for as much crap I give Gary Bettman being the commissioner of the NHL and all the wrong stuff that he's gone through over his 20-something, almost 30-year tenure now as commissioner of the NHL. It wasn't until his one of the faces of the league was gone for over a year that they started to figure out, okay, this head injury stuff in the NHL is serious. Mm-hmm. And they're starting to finally get it right. The NFL, I don't know if they'll ever get it right. I get it. It's a tough guy league. You got to be tough to play sports, and especially in the NFL. But you're taking your life into your hands every time you walk on that field, every time you go to practice, every time you step on the ice. You're taking your life into your hands. And it seems like there should be more in terms of fully guaranteed contracts, especially for skill players like a quarterback or a running back or a wide receiver, because they're the ones who are getting hit the most. Same for defense and for offensive line, especially because
they crash into each other
always
on every play,
colliding every single play.
Yeah.
So I don't know if the NFL is ever going to get it right, or because there's so much money involved in it. In this league, they're getting so many sponsorships, television contracts. But when the public, especially when parents aren't letting their kids play football because of what they see on TV. I mean, that's why I didn't play football when I was a kid. My parents, the moment they saw Joe Theismann's leg get snapped by Lawrence Taylor on Monday Night Football, and that scream that came from Joe Theismann, my parents said, "You're not playing football. I don't care how good you are in the backyard when you play with your brothers. You're not playing football." And that's the consequence that a lot of kids are going to have now, is that the fact that their parents don't want them to, don't want you to play football. I understand it could be a way out. I understand it could be a way to get college scholarships and a way out of whichever situation you're in. But a lot of parents now are going to take pause and say, "Whoa, you got to think about the rest of your life, even though you're in your teens or your 20s.
Yeah,
you got to sit down and think about it."
Yeah, it's true. It's true, and I don't know when they're going to get their act together, but there's a lot that goes into it. But hopefully, something like that is never allowed to happen again. Hopefully changes, I predict changes will come because of this, but I don't know what they are.
No. All right. So more feedback. I got Snowman saying Tua should walk away from the NFL Dolphins in the NFL to keep his life. I get it. Dave says he's more qualified than that neurological consultant after taking a CPR class. And,
I agree.
Yeah, we both agree. And he also says we are effectively in the 1950s when it comes to neuroscience. In a way, yeah, but I mean, there's always ways to improve. We have the technology to do it. We have CAT scans, MRIs, MREs. There are MRIs, MRAs. Those scans, the type of scans, are getting more improvement. They're being more improved. We can see what the brain is doing in real. We can see how the brain is doing in real time, especially after concussion. But Brian, I see you sitting there. You have anything to add to this conversation?
Look, at the end of the day, you can't fool anybody when it comes to the eye test.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care what you write in the injury report. I don't care what you claim an injury to be. When a guy gets up and stumbles and falls twice within a 15-second span, and then you go and call it a back injury
in your injury report
leading into a game 4 nights later, that is hypocrisy of the highest sort. And I'm going to compare what is going on with the NFL to another sport that people like to say is not sport, but it is sport with the way they have to bang around their bodies. It's professional wrestling.
Yep.
You look back at the way professional wrestling was leading up through the early 2000s. It was commonplace for you to use objects to hit people in the head. Chairs, tables, other foreign objects, whatever it may be.
Stop signs.
It took until, and I usually hate saying this name, but it's the only way to get the point across. It took until a wrestler named Chris Benoit committed a double murder-suicide in Atlanta, Georgia.
An egregious crime. Yeah.
For people to wake up. He murdered his wife. He murdered his, I want to say,
5-6
year old son, something like that.
Yeah.
I can't remember how old exactly it was.
Very young. Yeah.
And his other son just happened to be with his mother from a previous marriage that weekend. And his life was spared because he happened to not be in the house during that weekend. And then Benoit ultimately took his life a day or two after the fact.
Yeah.
Point being, it took for that to tell pro wrestling to clean up its act, along with obviously what Christopher Nowinski, a former wrestler, was doing.
Yeah.
Harvard grad, amazing what he's been doing.
Yep.
It took for a double murder suicide to wake them up. One time. I want you to go ahead and try counting how many guys have died that has since been found out to have severe CTE symptoms. Go beyond Junior Seau. Go to David Pearson. Go look at Jim McMahon.
Dave Duerson.
Somehow is still alive right now.
Yeah. Dave Duerson. He also committed suicide after his brain started to go.
Jim McMahon's lucky he's still alive because it was caught early enough where they're doing enough like new age technology in the medical field to help him try and live a happy, healthing life. Like
they're concentrating on his spinal column in the back of his neck rather than the head itself.
Right, like
that's the same thing they would say to Crosby too. They concentrate on his spine rather than his brain.
Right, like all you gotta do is go back and watch. I want to say that was part of.
That was the 85 Bears.
It was the 85 Bears documentary. I thought so. Go watch that. They have him doing 100-piece puzzles just to make sure his memory is on top of things. Okay, like that's how much degrades the brain and the brain stem. And something has to be done. Like how many more of these NFL veterans have to die, whether it be of natural causes, but ultimately their life was shortened by CTE, or die a tragic suicidal death where CTE was really the direct cause of them committing suicide? How many more former NFL players have to go through that in order for somebody to wake up and say, you know what? If you show any kind of concussion symptoms, whether or not a doctor ultimately rules you have a concussion, it's mandatory for you to at least sit out the next game on the schedule. Because that's what the wrestling does now. WWE, mandatory 2 weeks off the road. No house shows, no TV shows, nothing. You sit at home, you chill, you spend time with your family, and you keep getting checked every so often by doctors on staff until you get medically cleared.
Yeah,
I mean, you have to do the right thing by the athletes and stop thinking about dollars and cents. And until the NFL can stop putting money before literally the cart before the horse, they need to reevaluate things on every level.
Yeah, and look at the NHL too. We talk about players who have died. Take a look at Derek Bugard.
Oh yeah,
some of the enforcers. Derek Bugard.
Yeah, he was.
Ryan, it was Ryan Rippon, I think his name was.
I believe so.
From the Vancouver Canucks. Some of these guys died because they couldn't. Part of it is the problem is admission too, admitting when you are hurt, because again it comes back to that mentality of there's a guy behind me who's gonna want my roster spot. I gotta make sure I'm still on the ice or on the field or in the ring for as much as possible, as much time as possible. But they couldn't come to grips with that fact. And these guys didn't necessarily die of CTE, but all the head trauma that they suffered because they're getting into fights, it led to other things like drug and alcohol addiction, which would lead them to overdose
or depression
and depression. And that's why I'm thankful for guys like Kyle Turley. If you go to my Facebook, if you go to the YouTube website, I also had it featured in a podcast. I interviewed him for a good 20 minutes during the Super Bowl. We talked about how CBD and cannabis helped with his recovery from injury. He had neurological symptoms to it that he believes it's CTE, but he got help. He's part of he's part of an organization that helps both former and current players kind of deal with those symptoms, and all the work he's doing with seeing how cannabis works for the nervous system and the neurological system, in your neurological system. I mean, just because of that interview, I started taking CBD for myself. I take it at night before I go to bed, and I sleep like a baby because my nerves are I'm calm but based off that interview, I learned more about what players go through, and also from being a chaplain. Also, I was a chaplain for 9 seasons. Just talking to guys and earn their trust and see what they go through, see what their bodies go through on a regular basis, on a nightly basis for 9 months out of the year, 9 months, 8 months, depending on if you make the playoffs or not. It's only 17. It's 17 weeks, plus a bye week in the NFL. You're getting in a car crash every single weekend.
Yeah,
it takes a toll. And
I got one other point I want to make real quick.
Yep.
To further the comparison with wrestling and the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
Pro wrestlers are independent contractors.
Yeah.
NFL players have a damn union. Where's the NFLPA in all of this? Like that's the other part of it. Like,
bingo.
Like, I love to put blame on Goodell and all these doctors and everything.
DeMaurice Smith,
where the hell is DeMaurice Smith and the NFLPA?
Yeah.
Like, somebody say something. Like, we've seen all these campaigns in recent years for suicide prevention and the suicide hotlines, and people saying, like, as someone who deals with depression, like, I get it, like, it's okay to not be okay, and like, say something. It's the same thing with the people that are witnessing all these car crashes every single week and seeing the effect it has on these human beings. Because again, that's what they are. They're not just dollar signs. They're human beings. And until everybody gets an agreement on them being human beings, and this includes the NFLPA, and until somebody steps up, like Chris Nowinski, he can do all this yelling and screaming from the mountaintop he wants.
Yeah.
From the end, it's got to come from internal. It has to. Somebody has to say something from the inside, whether it be a big name player, DeMaurice Smith himself. Somebody has to take the lead on this from the inside, so you can have the greater effects on the outside when you're done.
Yeah. And you don't want to assume things, so I'm gonna be very careful in the way that I say this next point, but there is something happening with a recently, I don't know if you want to call him retired player, but Antonio Brown is clearly, he needs some help, and he took some brutal hits in his career, and you have to wonder if it's all linked together. And correct me if I'm wrong, gentlemen, but I believe didn't they surmise later that one of the contributing factors to why Muhammad Ali had Parkinson's and some of the issues that he had later in life were repeated unprotected hits to the head? These issues, it all stems from repeated head trauma.
Yeah. I mean, that whole thing with his head, and that was part of his strategy when he was in the ring, because he would basically make you hit him so many times you would get tired, and then he would knock you out later.
Yeah.
But that strategy came with a price, and that was part of the price. My dad has stage 1 of Parkinson's. I don't know where it's from, if it be from familial, or if it's from his time as a Vietnam era veteran. But I see him going through some of the stages, and it's not. Praise the Lord, it's not advanced like Muhammad Ali's was.
Yeah.
But these are things that, these are heavy topics that in sport that we could cheer, and we could be amazed by the athletic ability of these players, but at the end of the day, they are we got to think about their humanity.
Mm-hmm.
And it starts with somebody speaking up, somebody somewhere speaking up, whether it be the PA or a big name player. Somebody's got to speak up and say something.
You make a perfect comparison there too. Boxing and MMA, handful of fights maybe each year when you're active.
Mm-hmm.
You go through thorough physicals for every single fight,
Yep.
top to bottom,
Yep.
neurological, everything. NFL, if you don't have any previous injury history, you're walking in basically getting a once order by the team doctor. You're good to go. Go ahead and practice.
Yeah.
It's like people don't understand what happens when you have head-to-head contact.
Yep.
It's bizarre. It's so bizarre. It's like
Yeah.
It's like we're in 2022, but the mentality of everybody around this sport is still stuck in 1952. It's so like otherworldly. I can't even explain it. It's just bizarre is the only word to summarize it, basically.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep. Absolutely. Well, we're going to move on from this topic, gentlemen. This has been a very enlightening discussion about what's going on in the NFL in terms of player safety and what's going on. But we gotta move on to one of our other topics, which is the Major League Baseball wild card, which is a little bit lighter subject. But before we do that, we're going to talk about one of our friends at Gozilla Media, and that is Johnstone Supply in Troy. They're our baseball sponsor. Everything baseball this season, for the rest of the season, they are our partner. Now, fall is here. It's getting cooler outside, which means you're going to have to shut down your ACs for the year. Granted, if there's no 90-degree days up ahead in October, major things have happened. I mean, I remember 35 years ago today was that giant snowstorm that dumped about 2 feet of snow on the ground. I remember that succinctly in 1987. But if they don't have just cooling, they also have heating. So if you want your furnace to be up to date and you want high efficiency furnaces, you call Johnstone Supply in Troy. You've heard on previous episodes with George of Getting In There with Goz. You've talked about his story with Johnstone Supply. Stop in, take a look at their great products. Give Kev, James, or Bert a call. They can put you in a warmer place this autumn and this winter. Visit them on 2600 Avenue, 6th Avenue in Troy. Call them at 518-272-5922. You can also connect with them online at Johnstone Supply in Troy. They're also on social media, Johnstone Supply NY. Johnstone Supply, 2600 6th Avenue in Troy. Give them a call today. Get your furnace ramped up for what's going to be, I presume it's going to be a very cold and snowy winter. So speaking of baseball, gentlemen, the wild card. The end of the season's coming up. It ends, I believe it ends tomorrow, and we ramp up things almost immediately with the wild card. So we have all of our positions, I would say positions, but we have all of our teams set. So in the American League, the Yankees and the Houston Astros, they are top 2 seeds. They receive first round buys. Cleveland is the Central Division champion. Toronto has wrapped up home field for the wild card. Then you got Seattle and Tampa Bay. They're still battling out for the 5th and 6th spots. The 5th and 6th spots. So, guys, I mean, Brian, I know you cover baseball on Katie's Corner. I know you're a huge baseball fan. Which of these 4 teams do you think, in your mind, between Cleveland, Tampa, Toronto, and Seattle, which two of these teams do you think will advance to the divisional round?
Well, see, that's tough to answer because it may not sound like it's going to mean much, but I feel like whichever spot the Mariners fall into, that's danger. Even if they creep up into the 5 spot and play Toronto, that Seattle team, like, because they play on the West Coast and they don't get a whole lot of meaningful coverage beyond Julio Rodriguez, don't sleep on that pitching staff that has come alive for that Mariners team this year with Kirby and obviously Luis Castillo leading the way. I mean, Robbie Ray, like, they've really put together a nice pitching staff out there in Seattle. And they would be, out of the 3 wildcard teams, that's the team I'd be most scared to play if I'm Houston or the Yankees, especially the Yankees, with how Jekyll and Hyde the Yankees have been the last month and a half. Just because the Mariners might not have a tremendously potent offense, but they have enough pieces, plus a decent bullpen, plus the pitching staff, like I mentioned. That Seattle team, I mean, they are tricky, like very, very tricky.
Yeah.
Other than that, I mean, Toronto. It's weird because if you asked me in the preseason if I'd be scared of facing Toronto in the postseason, I would have said yes. But the way they've been playing this year, I'd be more scared of Cleveland than Toronto at this point.
Really?
I think Cleveland and Seattle would be the two teams to be concerned about facing in the next round if I'm Houston or the Yankees.
Dustin, how about you? Which these 4 teams do you think will advance into the divisional?
I'm with Brian on Toronto. To say they've been a roller coaster this season is kind of a I guess an understatement. Specifically Jose Barrios. I've got him on my fantasy team, and oh boy, that was a rough. It seems like every time he gets it together, he gets shelled the next start. So you just don't know. But ultimately, I do think they have Kevin Gausman. They've pieced together a staff along with that offense. They do have some firepower that if they can get hot, they'll go on a run. So I ultimately think that Toronto will prevail. And I also agree on the Mariners team. I don't know much about them, but I just know that they seem to be playing their best baseball at the right time. And we all know what can happen when a team fires on all cylinders at the right time. So I think the Mariners will also survive.
Let me make this quick point, by the way, before you give your picks, Ryan. The way I look at Toronto, they basically their blueprint for the way their season's going is the same as the White Sox, except the Blue Jays happen to have 11 more wins. Like, I mean, they've both been up, down, up, down, up, down. I can't even explain it. And obviously, the only reason Toronto has 11 more wins is because, well, they don't have Tony La Russa as a manager.
Yeah. Who, I guess he's stepping down, citing health concerns. So hope he's okay. But yeah, he certainly made some baffling decisions this season.
Gentlemen, we have history. History just occurred.
Oh, man.
Aaron Judge, 62 home runs.
Oh, yeah. Congratulations.
391 feet to left field at Globe Park. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a new home run champion in the American League. Congratulations to Aaron Judge. We know you're a big fan, no credentials required, but we want to give our congratulations to you, Aaron. History made. Guys, history made during our live stream.
Yeah, he might have been listening to last week's episode, at the plate. Who knows?
About time. I mean, we should have cut to. I mean, we should have done what ESPN did at those college football games and cut.
No. Don't make me mad. No. I don't want to talk about that. Even as a Yankees fan, I don't want to talk about that.
Oh my goodness. See, all it took is Brian Katie showing up on No Credentials Required, and history was made.
Yeah. This is. Hey, he's got the magic touch.
He does. All right, my picks, just because I'm so familiar with them. If I think Toronto will advance regardless of who they play. I know Seattle's a dangerous team. It's a 3-game series. But again, it depends on who they face. Right now, if I stand correct, and correct me if I'm wrong, I wrote down the scenarios. This is just based on what I saw on the schedule. So Seattle can clinch the 5 seed if they win 2 out of 3 against Detroit. They have a doubleheader today, and they have a game tomorrow. They win 2 out of those 3 games. They're the 5 seed. Tampa can move up if they win their last 2 games, and I believe if Seattle loses 2 of those 3 games, if I'm not mistaken. So I could be wrong. I mean, if you're, if my math is wrong, then it always is, because I sucked at math when I was in school.
Me too. So
right now, Seattle's losing 5-3 in game 1 of the doubleheader. Top 7.
Oof!
Wow!
Oof!
Wow! Who's on the mound for the Mariners? I wonder. Because I do your point about Robbie Ray, Brian, from earlier is well taken. And I remember in the beginning of the season there were concerns because his fastball velocity was way down, and everybody was saying, "What's wrong with Robbie Ray? What's wrong with Robbie Ray?" Well, his velocity's back. I think part of it was the later start to the season. The normal pitchers didn't have as much time to stretch out, and I think Robbie Ray. He's a past Cy Young winner, and he just seems to be picking it up.
Well, Flexen's number 4 starter who got pulled after 4 innings.
Yep.
Oh, okay. Chris Flexen.
Festa just pitched 2 innings, allowed 2 runs, and now Swanson is in for Seattle.
Justice Sheffield gets the ball game.
Oh boy. The vaunted Justice Sheffield.
Oh no.
Former Yankee prospect,
former
right?
Yankee, yes. He's one of their top prospects. Yeah.
Many people had a lot of feelings when he was traded away.
Yeah,
but
well, getting back to my picks, I think Toronto advances for sure. Just because I think that Sky Dome crowd is going to be a big difference maker for games 2 and 3, because they'll play game 1 on the road and they'll have home field for the last 2 games. So games 2 and 3 at Sky Dome. As for the 3-6, it's going to depend on who plays. If Tampa goes to the 6th seed, I think Cleveland advances. I'm not too familiar with the Guardians. But if Seattle gets the 6th seed, I think Seattle will beat Cleveland. So it's going to depend on who's the last 2 seeds in that wild card. Going over to the National League, this is where things get a little dicey. So right now we only have one true. Well, every team is set. We have all the teams set. It's just going to depend on where the seeding is. So the Dodgers, they are the number 1 seed for sure. They're locked in. The 2 seed is going to come down to the next 2 days. The Mets need to sweep the Nationals and have the Braves lose 1 game to clinch the division. Atlanta just needs to win both their games, and they own the tiebreaker. I believe. Oh wait, hang on. I'm looking. Yeah, Atlanta wins the division if they just need to win 1 game and they win the division. The Mets have to win 3 games and have the Braves lose 1 game in order to take the NL East. Then we got San Diego. They clinched the 5 seed with 2 wins, or Philadelphia loses 1 against Houston. And the Phillies can move up to the 5 seed if they win out against Houston and San Diego loses both games against San Francisco. I don't think. I mean, the way the Phillies been playing as of late, they could pull off the upset and grab that 5 seed. But where do you guys think this wild card? Where do you think the seeding ends tomorrow? At the end of tomorrow, who do you think who grabs all the rest of those seeds? Because right now it's just a jumble of who's going to be in which spot.
Well,
and the Cardinals. I'm sorry, the Cardinals have the 3 seed because they won the Central. Sorry,
yeah, they did get the Central. I don't know. I have a feeling the Mets. I think the Mets could be dangerous in the postseason because they have Chris Bassett, who's pitched very well. They have Max Scherzer, of course. But I also just have a feeling. I think the Braves are going to take the NL East. I think the Mets had such a lead on that division, and then they just kind of let it go. Away. And the Braves. I'm sorry to all the Mets fans out there, but the Braves have had their number over history. It seems like the Braves had been the bugaboo that the Mets just can't shake. So I do think. I know Buck Showalter came out and said these guys are going to make people feel their pain or whatever he said, some kind of quote, but I think the Braves take the NL East.
Brian, what's your thoughts?
So I'm going to throw a little bugaboo into what you said.
All right.
Before handing off to Dustin. This is to Ryan. Dustin, you're fine. This is to Ryan. Two
all
bugaboos.
Right.
Number 1, the Mets need the Braves to lose every game to the Marlins in this series, because even if Atlanta wins 1 game and the Mets sweep the 3 against Washington, Atlanta owns the tiebreaker, so Atlanta would win the East.
Right. Yeah.
Now-
I thank you for correcting my math. Again, my math sucks.
No,
So-
you're good. You're good. And honestly, the only reason I even knew that is because I happened to watch the post game from the Mets' first game earlier today. It's the only reason I knew that. But here's the other wrench in the plans. They're not doing a 1-2 split. All 3 games are at the higher seed stadium of these wild card
okay.
series.
Oh, I did
Okay.
not. I did not realize
Thank you
that.
thank you for correcting me.
So for me, here's what's interesting. I'm going to chalk off the East to the Braves. So that figures out your 2 seed.
Mm-hmm.
So this now sets you up with the Phillies at St. Louis and then the Padres coming to Citi Field.
Yep.
If there was any way the Mets were ever going to beat the Padres, it's in this scenario. 3 games at home. I don't see it as a sweep. I think the Mets can find a way to squeak by, though, which ultimately puts them against the Dodgers. Bless their souls.
Yeah, that.
Phillies Cardinals? How do you beat Goldschmidt, Arenado, and a suddenly
Pujols.
revived Albert Pujols? How
Yeah.
do you beat that?
Yeah.
And then factor in Jordan Montgomery pitching out of his mind since the trade from the Yankees. Adam Wainwright's still there. Miles Mikolas has been pitching well since coming off the IL. I just don't see any way and plus the Phillies offense, like we mentioned about a couple teams in the AL, the Phillies offense has been so night and day.
Yeah.
It's crazy. So like because that lack of consistency for Philly on the offensive side, I gotta say Cardinals over the Phillies in that wild card matchup.
Yeah.
I would agree with you there because I know I really didn't delve in as deeply, but the Padres are another team that baffles me. They made all the moves, correct me if I'm wrong, but they made all the moves that they did in the offseason to specifically compete with the Dodgers. And it just seems to me that nothing has really panned out the way that they've thought. Now, obviously, they have a chance to make the postseason. So the season is not, I'm not saying that it went down in flames, but they just have not performed overall to the way that everybody thought they would. Blake Snell, he's another starter. Sometimes he looks amazing. Other times he just gets shelled. You can never get a read on him.
Yeah.
But
let's not forget Juan Soto as a member of the Padres. Now.
Yeah.
They went
the Juan
all
Soto
in for
trade.
him in that trade.
Yeah. It's unbelievable. I didn't think they would. I thought they'd do a little better this year. I will say that. But...
Yeah, I thought they were going to compete with the Dodgers, but nope. Nope. it's Houston, the AL West. The Mariners were right behind. Were on the heels of the Astros for a bit, and all of a sudden the All-Star break comes around and Houston sweeps them in a series, and it was all over from there.
Oh, yep.
Like you mentioned the Padres. Like here's what's bizarre. They played better pre-Soto trade.
They did, yeah.
They also played better without Tatis in the lineup.
Yeah. Well, that
I just I'm as confused as you are with the Padres, man. Like I like you look at this squad, like even go beyond Snell. Like you have Musgrove, you have Clevenger, you have Darvish still.
Yeah.
You got Sean Manaea at the before the season because you thought he was going to be the standout guy between him and Montas from Oakland. So you went and got him during the offseason. And you still have Mackenzie Gore that's hanging around.
Yeah.
I mean, and oh yeah, by the way, you went and got Josh Hader, and I don't think that's really worked out very well for him.
No, I don't think so. And just the whole Tatis thing, I had completely forgotten about that. But he and then the quotes that came out of the locker room where they said, "We don't need him anyway." That was pretty much what the players said. So, yeah, San Diego, Ron Burgundy's not liking it right now because all's not sunny in San Diego. I'll tell you that.
Milk was a bad choice.
Go F yourself, San Diego. All right. So I got Brian's predictions for the wild card. Dustin, how about your wild card predictions?
I'm going for the, I'm going to say Cardinals would beat the Phillies in the scenario that Brian laid out. And then I also agree. I think in a shortened series, if the seeding falls right, it would be the Mets beating the Padres because I think pitching. I would take the Mets pitching in a short series to come out on top.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like I know
I
DeGrom
agree.
has had a little bit of struggles, but
Yeah, but he's still
you give me Scherzer, DeGrom, Walker, or Scherzer, DeGrom, Bassett
yeah.
versus Darvish, Manaea, and Musgrove. I'm gonna guess. I'm not even
Yeah.
entirely sure with that. Like one of these things is not like the other.
Yeah, Bassett has really been, and I don't watch a lot of Mets games because I'm a Yankee fan, but Bassett has
Yeah.
been a revelation as of late. You know, he's got a little like deception in his delivery, and it's working out well for him.
And on top of that, worst case scenario, you can't tell me that you have something in the bullpen at San Diego like the Mets have in Tyler McGill coming back from injury because he was showing out the first couple months of the season as a starter, and now he's just coming back in time for the postseason. He can be an arm you bring out if, God forbid, DeGrom isn't quite up to snuff or Bass isn't up to snuff,
Yeah.
or if you get into a deeper series and you have Taiwan Walker starting. That could be a huge difference maker too if you use Tyler McGill for long relief to help save innings on your other arms in the bullpen.
Yeah, I agree as well because haven't the Padres brought Mackenzie Gore back from injury as a reliever as well?
Yeah, but I just
Because
I don't know.
I would rather go with McGill than Gore because he hasn't proven it he's a highly touted prospect, but he hasn't proven it at the MLB level yet. He's shown flashes, but if he was really lighting it up, they'd bring him back as a starter.
Yeah, I mean Gore was only 4-4 with a 4.5 ERA before getting hurt, and now he's being used mostly as a bullpen guy because like I mentioned, Josh Hader just oof, like it's the best way for me to put it. I mean, oof.
All right, folks. So I think we're gonna wrap things up here. Before we go, Dustin, I'm gonna give you the floor. Talk about your Extra Life fundraiser. So
Oh, well,
go
thank you
right
very
ahead.
much. Thank you very much. I will be gaming to raise on Saturday, November 5th. I will be gaming for what I hope to be 24 straight hours to raise money for the Bernard and Millie Duker Children's Hospital at Albany Med. I'm doing this for a charity called Extra Life. It goes to help children fight childhood cancer and I believe other sicknesses as well. It is, it's just been something that I've done for the last few years. This will be my 5th year doing it. I really enjoy it. If you've got time, swing by, catch me on Twitch on Saturday, November 5th. Usually I start at 9 a.m. I will go for a minimum of 12 hours, so I will be there till at least 9 p.m., but the goal is to go until 9 a.m. the following day. And yes, the clocks do fall back that weekend, so it should be a wild ride. But come on over to Twitch at eldusto67. Check me out. I'm not a great gamer, never pretended to be, but it's something I like to do.
Yep.
And I'll just chime in real quick, by the way. I happen to know the Duker family. Michael owns actually a barbershop on Madison Avenue called Duke's Barbershop. Been good friends with them for years.
Oh, wow.
So I can't second everything Dustin's been saying about the organization. They do a tremendous job with Children's Hospital and Albany Medical Center. So please support Dustin's cause. It's amazing.
Yep.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Brian, where can people find you and where can they find your podcasts?
Yeah, you could find me on Twitter at Brian Cady, as you see it right here on the YouTubes. If you're listening on the audio only podcast, it's at BRIANCADY. It's my name all as one word. My podcast, White Heat, a pro wrestling podcast with me and my friend JJ Alexander, usually comes out every Monday night, sometime between 7 and 9 p.m. Eastern. But don't worry, you can always check it on the Gozilla Media YouTube page. You can also check it out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Play. Katie's Corner, which is a baseball-based podcast. That typically drops every Thursday morning. But this week, with all the games ending before 8 o'clock Eastern, might see a special edition drop Wednesday evening instead for this week. But we'll see, depending on what the wife says yes and no to. And other than that, one last thing. Just got the official word today that I am now going to be the public affairs director for Albany Broadcasting. as of next week.
Oh, wow.
Which
Congratulations.
includes,
Right.
thank you. That includes hosting a public affairs show that'll be playing every weekend on the entire family of stations called Albany Street, long hosted by great radio personality Joe Condon, who just recently retired. So my hat's off to Joe. And I'm honored to be taking over the position that he gave up, running the public affairs show. And yeah, that should be starting up. Hopefully, we're hoping for next weekend for the first show with me. If not, it'll be the weekend after Columbus Day.
All right. Congratulations to Brian.
Thank you much.
For the new job. And are you still gonna be doing the podcast thing as well as the public affairs thing?
Don't worry. I already texted Gaz as soon as I got the news. I was like, "Don't worry, I ain't going anywhere. I'm still going to be around and doing my podcast. So all is good in the world with that."
Most excellent.
All right. And lastly, Ryan, where can people find your work besides this podcast?
All right. So personally, you can find me right here down below. If you're on the visual side, you see my Twitter account right there. You can also, which is also my Instagram. It's at whoisryanmcc. You can find me. You can find my writings on bellyupsports.com. I have to write. I'm up at the New York Jets. I'm their beat writer, so you can find my work there. I'll try to push out an article this week and talk about the Jets and their most excellent victory this past Sunday, while still fresh in my mind. But you can find my work there. You can find me, us every Tuesday, 7:00 YouTube. We're going on Facebook more as opposed to Twitter. I find we can have more engagement on Facebook rather than Twitter. But YouTube, Belly Up TV, Facebook, and of course, you can find our social media channels for No Credentials Required right down here. Twitter, Instagram, TikTok at NoCredsREQ, Facebook.com / NoCredsREQ, YouTube, No Credentials Required. Like us, follow us, subscribe. Also on the audio side, Spreaker is where our home base is, but you can also listen on Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, anywhere you podcast. Leave a 5-star rating. It'd be really nice to have that 5-star rating because that way more people know about this podcast. And if you can leave a review. I may read it on the air if it's sufficiently cruel and unusual, but not borderline racist. I will definitely give it a read.
Perfect.
Okay, if it's racist, period, I won't read it. But anywho, for Brian Kinney, our special guest this week, and Dustin Henry, I'm Ryan McCarthy. Thanks for watching and/or listening to No Credentials Required, where you don't need a press pass to talk sports. Brought to you as always by Belly Up Sports in association with Gozilla Media. Tune in next week. We'll be back at 7:00 live on YouTube, Facebook, and Belly Up TV. So for my panel, we will talk to you later.
Good night, everybody.
Later.